back to Men on Trek. Today, Balance of Terror Redux.
A Redux episode.
With Captains Palpatine and Daystrom and Admiral Red Shirt.
It was so good the first time, we had to do it a second.
Well, we've learned so much since then. Apparently.
Yes, we have.
Yes. So, gentlemen, an excuse to watch Balance of Terror again, right?
Absolutely.
One of our favorites. One of everyone's favorites. So.
Still my favorite episode. I think that's consistent.
Yes.
Yeah, my favorite episode. Number one.
Not my number one, probably in my top three. Yeah. Top three.
I'd say it's almost number one.
You know.
I didn't do a whole lot of numbering them, but it's in my top 5.
It's probably my top 3, but not number one. Doomsday Machine is still probably
that's up there too. It's hard to it's hard to judge. But after seeing it again for the umpteenth time, it's amazing you draw something else new from it that you didn't pick up the first time.
That's true. True.
I think Doomsday is very close for me. It's number 2. The reason it's not number 1 is because I think you could watch Balance of Terror, or let's say that you were making a remake of the series and you decided to just throw the canon out the window and just do a bunch of new crap. That it could stand on it's like a movie. It was
Strange,
like
it is a movie.
Strange New World.
It is.
Yeah, the movie. What was it?
No, the movie's not called Strange New World.
No, I'm not talking about
Balance of Terror. This was my favorite fun fact from the first time we looked at it. Balance of Terror is almost an exact copy of a movie called, well, not almost, it is a copy of a movie called Enemy Below from 1957 starring Robert Mitchum, which is a World War II submarine versus destroyer movie.
Is that part of Turner Classics? Could you see it?
I bet you could.
AMC, Turner Classics, probably, yeah. Enemy Below.
Where Doomsday Machine, I think, is it's within the Star Trek universe, and you probably... It wouldn't be a standalone. It's a great episode.
Yes.
But it's not, I don't feel it could be a standalone movie where Balance of Terror could be.
Yeah, it doesn't have legs outside the context of the series.
Right. Still a great movie. And that'll be part of the Redux series for.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you didn't, anything we did back in the days before video is we're coming back at it again.
3 years ago.
Yeah, it has been that long.
So you can see our smiling faces as we do it all again.
You smile?
Yeah, I smile.
Sometimes? Okay.
Sometimes.
Oh. And
I'm not absconding off with a horror. Yeah.
I think you smile more then.
I felt bad for the Admiral because in this episode I had Yeoman Rand.
Yeah.
Was my ooey. Uhura was your ooey. And that really only left the phaser officer.
Actually, I had to adapt and overcome. There was unnamed yeoman at the wedding, behind the wedding party.
Oh,
who was quite attractive.
Oh, okay. So there was something.
He found something. He found some candy of some kind in the background.
Yes,
a diamond in the rough.
That's the Admiral.
Yeah. Ace in the hole.
It's our Admiral.
So I'm good. Not that the bride to be was not unpleasant. But
she was all right.
If we're going to start talking about oohies, unnamed yeoman in the back, gold shirt, very cute.
Nice.
So, for those of us who don't know or who didn't catch it the first time, Balance of Terror, Season 1, Episode 15, originally aired in 1966. We open up with... the consensus was the remaster wasn't quite up to par yet on this episode. They didn't quite.
They were still trying to figure it out. They were trying to figure out how far to go.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Whether to completely redo it or just redo the ship.
Yeah, in this instance, they redid the ship.
And I'm sorry, as much as I love Trek, it looked bad.
It was bad.
It was bad.
The blending of the new ship effects with the old backgrounds did not work.
Terrible.
Did not
work.
The problem is now going back, and because in the later episodes where they actually, it's some of the best CGI I've seen in any Star Trek television series or movies, where we were talking about the remastered later on.
Yes.
You know, where they're adding atmospheric effects to planets, and there's a reflection on the ship, and you see angles that you weren't used to seeing before.
People in
this
windows.
almost looked like there was a guy at Weta on an Apple with a first version of CGI, and they actually let the star background, which was from the 60s, that animation, whatever they did then, and then they CGI'd the ship in place. It was pretty rough.
Yeah.
There is a video on YouTube, an effects group, and it's not really a group, it's some friends that remastered the Death Star scene.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've seen it.
Oh, my God, it was awesome the way they did it. They put the
shadows.
They put the X-Wing going down the trenches, and they showed the tower lights showing across.
Shadows.
The shadows on the X-Wing. It was fantastic.
A greater sense of speed.
Oh, it was fantastic. Right. So what can be done with remastering can be fantastic. Can be above the chain.
The technology has opened up a lot of doors. You can take a home system and do some amazing things.
Yes.
And I think that episode that you're talking about on their channel, I think they did it all in a week.
Yeah, it was really quick.
Yeah, it was like 5 days.
It was really quick. They remastered the whole Death Star trench scene.
Yeah.
And it was gorgeous. But this remaster in Balance of Terror,
they're figuring it out.
There's
even a difference.
I don't want to disparage them.
No, they're just figuring it out.
Yeah, it looked bad.
They got better.
Yeah, I don't think it was because, and I was kidding a little bit earlier about somebody in his basement doing it. I think that they were probably instructed to make it look like models, but clean it up a little bit. And then there's a shot later on with the Romulan bird of prey on the top.
A lot better.
And you could start to see they snuck that in because there was detail in that.
Well, it depends on, as we always talk about, what the suits have to say. We want you to do this, and when they tried it, just clean up the Enterprise and make the Enterprise looks good. Well, if you drop that on a nasty background, the old Starfield, it doesn't look right.
What kind of tying into what Jim just said, what I observed is by the end of the episode, there's a marked difference. As they were redoing this episode, somebody figured out that we can't just retouch the Enterprise and not mess with the rest, because the Starfield that had you cringing, the last time you see the Enterprise against a Starfield backdrop in the episode, they've tweaked the Starfield.
Yes, they did. Yes,
and that's when you get the really great shots of the Romulan. So, somebody figured it out like midstream. Like, we can't do this. We have to do something different.
I was so offended. I think I need to sue Paramount for.
You were triggered.
Yeah, I was triggered.
You were triggered?
Yeah.
I was triggered, man. I mean, that hurt me.
Oh.
It hurt me to my core. I need to get some money off of it.
Do we need to get you to talk to somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And how dare you put out stuff like that? It can affect me for the rest of my life.
Well, let's talk about this fantastic episode. Maybe you'll feel better by the end. If not, we'll get you.
Well, not too long after, they brought a whore in, and I was good.
Okay, I'm fine. I'm glad. Yeah, we're thinking about Nichelle Nichols on today.
At her peak.
So, Balance of Terror. Our episode opens up. The Enterprise is rushing towards the Romulan neutral zone because they have lost contact with Federation monitoring outposts 3 and 4. They don't know what's going on. Communications have been lost. They've been sent to investigate.
But before we even get to that information, you start off with them being at the chapel.
This is true.
The chapel inside the ship.
Yeah.
They do have some forms of religion.
Oh no, there's a thing on the wall behind Kirk that's got like all these different religious symbols.
Well, they're at the chapel because there's going to be a wedding.
Yeah.
On the ship. And you're out in deep space for a long time. You need to find your ooey where you can.
When you're out at deep sea for 6 months, that's against the rules.
I love that Scotty is hooking up this like 70 millimeter camera lens.
Yeah. On the wall.
On the wall.
Yeah,
for 1966, that was high tech looking stuff.
Yeah, it was. You want your wedding to be filmed.
Of course. It's the videotape that nobody watches again.
So what's happening is a couple has decided to...
Lieutenant Thomason.
Yep.
And I can't recall her name. If they ever... I know they say it. It escapes me. Don't look at me, guys. You know the name? Her name escapes me.
It's not in the first notes?
No.
She didn't even rate notes?
I didn't care back then either, I guess. But no. No. But yes, they are. Kirk is conducting a wedding ceremony.
And he starts out with saying, a captain,
Captain's
the duty of a
privilege.
captain, the
Yes,
privilege
the
of a
duty
captain, because he is the ultimate authority on the ship.
At sea, as the tradition goes.
As the tradition goes. He's the ultimate authority.
Mm-hmm.
So he's decided, or they probably asked him to.
Well,
Technically not. Well, he probably could have, given the authority to someone else to do it.
No, typically that in a setting like that, it would be the captain, unless there's an actual chaplain on board, which there should be. But unless there's an actual chaplain on board, yeah, captain's going to do that. So yeah, the wedding.
What was interesting, and as I was watching it, I was thinking of how they would film it today. Everybody on the bridge would have been there at the wedding. If you think about how things are done today, even if you thought next gen, if some crew member got married, everybody who was part of the main cast would be down there at 10 forward or wherever the wedding was being held. And the only ones that were there was McCoy, Scotty, and the captain. Everybody else was on duty.
Mm-hmm. Especially since they were riding into a potential emergency situation.
Captain Palpatine, can I make it to the wedding? No, you're on duty.
Yeah.
Did anybody catch that? Everybody else was on duty.
Yeah. I mean, that was realistic.
Lieutenant Angela Martinez.
Yes, it's Martinez.
Yes.
Played by the lovely Barbara Baldwin. Barbara Baldwin.
So, but everybody, I just thought that was funny because, like I said, if it was done today, all of the main cast would be in that scene.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives more realism.
Oh, it's much better writing.
That half the crew was not there.
Yeah.
If you then when I'm thinking about it, you think about next gen. Every time they had something like Data's doing some flute thing or singing or reading a poem, everybody who's on the show is there. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you guys pick a day when the main cast is off?
That's a great point because McCoy is in this, but he's only in it enough. McCoy is only there when he needs to be.
Yeah.
It's like. And even during the ceremony, right before it starts, Kirk goes over and takes a call.
Right.
So it's almost
he's getting an update on the situation.
Yeah, it's almost like what you're saying to the audience is that this is important, but it's not the most important thing that's happening on the ship.
Right. No, they still got their jobs to do.
They still have their that's it. They still have their jobs to do. We can take time out for this special event. But the special event doesn't trump your responsibilities.
Well, yeah, but there's even an air of let's hope we can get this in before we have to do something else.
But what I'm pointing out in today's mindset, your special event trumps everybody's responsibility. Think of how the world works now. How you feel, how you're triggered trumps everything.
Yeah.
This is how, as a society, how we're working to.
That's not how it works in my world, but
not in the Admiral's world, but in general.
Yeah, well,
someone's offended, the whole world has to stop. Everything has to stop. Or am I reading it wrong?
Negative. My world doesn't stop.
No, I think your point is valid.
It's a different mindset.
Well, that's the thing that this is one of the things. It's one of the reasons we're doing the podcast to begin with is that to say that there was virtue to the way that stories were told.
Yes.
And it taught moral and ethical lessons, and it used a framework that people could identify with. We talked a little bit about this idea, you can declare yourself a hero now. And if you're not accept that, then you're wrong. If you don't accept when somebody just makes a statement and saying, "Well, I'm a hero," or "I've done this."
If you don't co-sign.
Yeah, if you don't co-sign. Where we see in this story the two main characters, which is the Romulan captain and
our captain,
Captain Kirk. Neither one of them want to be there. No. Neither one of them wants this war, but they both have duty.
Right.
So, what's the message here? The message is that you may have to do something you don't, believe it or not, you may have to do something that you don't like.
Right.
In order to do what you're supposed to do.
To fulfill your obligation that you agreed upon. That's what duty is. Duty is an obligation that you have willingly picked up. Nobody forced you to do it. Duty is an obligation you picked up. You say, I want to be, let's say, I want to be a doctor. Well, you got classes to go to. So you're getting a residency. You want to be a doctor, but you say, well, I'm not going to do my residency trials. You chose to. Nobody made you be a doctor, right?
Right.
You chose to do this.
Right.
That's your responsibility. It's the duty that you picked up.
Well, duty is often for others. In serving your duty, you're usually serving others.
Usually, yeah. Yeah, you're putting something ahead of yourself or above yourself. Your own interests take a back seat to it.
But Sir William delivers a great line. He said something along the. He said, "It's always been the pleasure since the time of wooden ships for ships' captains to marry."
Yeah, to perform this ceremony.
Which I thought that was that nice nostalgia that you're bringing it back in. And there's a reference later on that Kirk has to wishing that he was on a ship.
On a ship with on a ship at sea with just a little bit, not too much shuffleboard.
It sounded like a cruise ship.
Yeah, a cruise ship. He wanted to be someplace else.
Yeah,
but this small moment that we're getting a view into the life of a starship crewman is soon overshadowed by
war
duty.
War
overshadowed by the duty, your responsibility.
Yeah.
Responsibility pulls you out of your reverie.
Yeah.
So, okay. There's an old commercial that doesn't air anymore, and it was a Dunkin' Donut commercial, and it was an old guy getting up in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, the alarm would ring, and he would look at his wife, and he would say, "Time to make the donuts."
Yeah. It was early in 6.
He had to get up. He had to go to Dunkin' Donuts, make the donuts for people who were on their way to work.
Yeah.
Stop at the donut shop, get a donut and a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the deadpan delivery.
Yeah.
Time to make the donuts.
Yep.
And a couple of times he met himself coming back through the door. He says, "Time to make the donuts. I made the donuts."
Right. But during the course of the ceremony, we get an alert.
Mm-hmm.
Battle stations. Captain to the bridge.
Outpost 4 has lost contact.
Mm-hmm.
Captain to the bridge. Have to pick this up later.
But as you were saying previously, the captain was told that they lost contact with Outpost 1.
Three initially. Outpost 3.
They never mention 1.
They don't mention 1,
and they say
which is kind of weird.
2, 3, and 10 or something.
2, 3, and 8.
2, 3, and 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, which struck me weird when we rewatched it, because it's like when they show the map, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 8, and it's like, so 2, 3, 8, 4. It's just kind of weird.
Well, I mean, I think if he's trying to be tactical, I think if he did 1, 2,
he wouldn't
3,
he wouldn't do systematic.
Yeah, he wouldn't be systematic.
He would bounce around. He would skip a couple.
Right.
Well, but that means he's running up and down that line. Pretty big piece of territory.
Well, the other thing is too. I think it would also the famous line from the other franchise that we don't talk about is that a certain indigenous peoples ride single file in order to hide their numbers. Yeah. So I think he was trying to give the impression, the Romulan, that there could have been multiple ships attacking.
That's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah.
So they go to Red, and that was something else that jumped out at me. We talk about Red Alert and Yellow Alert, which is kind of standby. They hadn't really seemed to have defined all that yet. It was battle stations, go to standby, or
security
alert. But they hadn't gotten the color code that they kind of get into later on. I just know this was something I noticed when they were doing it. But yeah, they get to the bridge, and they're heading in, and as Palpatine points out, Captain Kirk's he's apprehensive. He's like, "This is bad. We're riding into a fight. We're riding into a battle."
Well, he gets to do the whole. He does the ship-wide announcement that basically says, "Let me remind everybody that we're all a bunch of moes." And if it comes down to it, I have to sacrifice you and the ship. That's the way to get everybody cheered up and ready to go.
Well, he brings them all up to speed. He goes, he gives them a quick, brief history and lets them know that
the Neutral Zone Treaty was made over 100 years ago.
What I like about it is he had Spock bring it up, and he said, you can look at your screen and see what this is. This is the Romulan Neutral Zone for your historical point of view. Over 100 years ago, we had a conflict, and a lot of people lost their lives. And just so you know, Starfleet is willing to sacrifice us
and the outpost
and any one of these bases to maintain the
peace.
The peace.
Yeah.
So they'll throw us to the wolves. They'll let us be slaughtered
if it avoids a war.
If it avoid a galactic war.
Yeah.
And that's purely the numbers. The greater number.
Yeah.
What did Spock say in the movie? The value of the many versus the one?
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
You know what I thought also was neat, and they did it in Wrath of Khan, is they represented the neutral zone in a three-dimensional sphere, where in this one it looks like a river, swath of space.
It's a 2D map.
Right, it's a 2D map, but in Wrath of Khan, when they're doing the simulations of the Kobayashi Maru, it's a 3D football-shaped zone. Yeah.
It would because it envelops another person's territory, and you're not supposed to go in there.
Right.
Yeah, so
the Romulan Star Empire.
The Romulan Star Empire.
Yeah. So the Enterprise is heading in. Outpost 3 is definitely offline. When they get closer to scanning range, when they get close to where Outpost 3 should be, Spock reports debris. No sign of the base, and the asteroid that it was on has been largely destroyed. Pulverized. Yeah. So they push towards 4, and as they approach 4, they reestablish contact with Outpost 4.
I want to start a Commander Hansen Memorial Fund. Like, what a Kickstarter fund for in memory of Commander. GoFundMe for Commander Hansen.
Yeah, it's brutal.
They establish contact with Outpost 4. Before you even see him, Commander Hansen is sounding rough. And, he just wants to know, Enterprise, can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see what they've done to us?
Right.
Can you see
We're
it?
a mile underground.
And mostly iron.
I'm not laughing at him, just so the algorithm knows that. What I'm laughing at is just the way in which they establish what is happening in a 2 to 3 minute scene. Like you understand the gravity immediately. Hansen is in an outpost on an asteroid, solid iron, a mile deep.
Yes.
And he looks like he's been standing in front of a microwave for too long.
An outpost that has full shields.
Full shields and castrodidium.
And castrodidium shielding, which is the hardest substance known to them at this time.
That's right.
It's got all that. It's a full military outpost.
And it looks like somebody walked up to him and washed his face with a dirty rag.
What's funny about it is in the writing, I didn't need to see you hold a blaster bolt in midair to understand how powerful someone is or something is. In a couple of words, just with a simple smut on the guy's face and some burning stuff behind him.
It's mostly delivered by the actor who played Hansen.
Oh yeah,
his performance.
Can you? Isn't that great that you let an actor deliver a performance instead of letting the writers write the performance for the actor?
What really gets it across, because you don't get to see all this cool stuff. You don't get to see the outside of the asteroid, because now they show you all that. what you have is from as soon as they establish contact with this guy, he's like, "Can you see us?
Right.
Do you see what they've done to us?"
Right. And Kirk keeps saying, "Can you identify the ship?" That's all. He's not saying like, "Oh, Hansen, don't worry, we're on our way."
We'll beam right down.
Yeah, he doesn't. They never even mentions saving Hansen.
No,
never
they're too far. They're too far away.
Not even. Doesn't even bring it up. He's not even. Doesn't even try to. Hansen's like, Enterprise, look at me. I've been beaten down. And Kirk is like, "Can you identify the ship? I need to know about the ship. Tell me about the ship."
The point the Admiral makes is they just get within contact range. So they're not close enough to do anything. And Kirk makes no promises about, we're on our way to save you. No. I need to know who did this to you first, as Captain Palpatine is saying.
But Hansen delivers it because of his shock. He's like, man, they should not have been able to do this to me.
This shouldn't have happened.
That's right.
This shouldn't have happened.
Do you see us?
I can see Hansen saying, we've got enough shielding to withstand 5 Enterprises, and this one, whatever this was, blew in and blew us down.
That was one shot. That was one shot.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
It's multiple shots that ultimately do it, but the first shot takes down the shields, and we have a sense of how strong the shields are from what's happened to the Enterprise. But it's Hansen, because to what Jim's pointing out and what you're pointing out, not only is Kirk not making any promises about rescue, Hansen's not saying, "Come get me."
Right, yeah.
Hansen's saying, "Do you see this?
Look what they've done to us."
Duty.
Hansen's like, "I'm gonna die."
That's right.
But you need to see what's going on, and he's like, hey, look, let me take my burnt body and fix this monitor,
right?
Because you need to see what's happening here.
Switching over, he's like,
I am great. You find it?
I don't know.
But not close enough. It is the second ship theory again. They're not the first ones on the scene. They didn't roll up and get blasted by by the Romulans.
Well, we said this, and I don't care if it's early. We said that in this episode, if the ships were equal,
yeah,
Kirk was dead.
Well,
if the ships were equal,
our intrepid crew would not have survived.
But again, the second ship principle. Outpost 3 warned Hansen. Hansen had warning.
Yeah, Hansen had warning.
Hansen got his shields up and his phasers on.
But Hansen couldn't move.
Well, no.
Stuck.
But here's my thing. The outpost was designed to withstand attack. Hansen didn't get caught flat-footed. His shields were up. His phasers were on. Dude was ready. I was like, okay, I'm prepared to resist you. And then,
to the known technology at the time, not the invisible bird of prey that shows up with the plasma weapon that
the plasma
obliterates your asteroid you're standing on.
First shot,
it's like a Death Star weapon.
First shot takes the shields offline. Not only knocks them down.
We don't know if it was one shot.
No, he says that.
Yeah.
First shot takes the shields out.
Yeah.
And then they proceed. He doesn't tell you how many shots take the base down.
That's what I'm getting at.
But the first shot takes the shields out, and that by itself is like, man, that's like incredible.
Well, we know, if we believe canon, and I know you have a problem with this number, but it's in the Changeling, where the Changeling supposedly fires an energy weapon at Enterprise, and Spock says, our shields absorb the energy of 90 photon torpedoes from the Changeling. And I think you've always had an issue with that amount of energy.
I think that's exaggerated.
But if you think about what that Romulan plasma weapon was, the level of energy released.
The reason I find that number exaggerated is because you're not going to have 90 photon torpedoes.
No.
You know how long a battle would take? You run out of photon torpedoes before you brought down the ship.
Well, no, Spock's just equivocating the energy amount. That's what I'm talking about. It's an incredible energy amount.
It's an exorbitant energy amount.
But wasn't that?
Well, we see later on in the episode that the Enterprise is capable of absorbing an enormous amount of energy.
Well, yeah.
In less than 100 meters.
Yes. Yeah.
But nonetheless, so the bird of prey, Hansen saying, "Hey, this is what happens." He goes, "I'm picking him up on screen."
He's like, "Can you see them?" And Kirk's like, no,
Kirk's like, show it, tie our screen to yours
so
we can see what's happening.
Yeah.
But he also says to Uhura, challenge that ship.
Right. And she does.
Warn them off, challenge them, say, come after us, not the base.
But see, I don't think the Romulans could see or hear the challenge.
They may
when their cloaks were up. I don't think they got the challenge.
When they decloaked, though, they should have at least heard the broadcast, the transmission.
He said they were talking to someone. He never said that got challenged. He said the base was talking to someone. They were talking to a ship.
Yeah, he says he's talking to an Earth.
Well, no,
ship.
I'm not saying that they acknowledged that they heard.
But
Uhura.
what I'm saying is the challenge Uhura sent never made it to the Romulan ship because their shields were in cloak. Because he never said he made the statement.
May not have.
Because the one guy was saying we're good. And he goes, no, there's another ship out there. The base was talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't say the base other ship challenged us.
Yeah, I agree on that point. I agree on that point. There was not the challenge wasn't received.
Right.
But Hanson's looking. He goes, here they come. Can't you see him? Can't you see him?
You see the bird of prey decloak. And that's it for Hanson.
Well, before all this, Styles made mention that we don't know who took out these bases, and Styles goes, "Oh, we know who took them out.
The Romulans did it."
Well, he doesn't say that, but he goes, "We know who took them out." He goes, "Look where we are."
Right.
Basically. And that's when Kirk pulls up the map.
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, we're close to the border. It's you're starting to do deductive reasoning." And it's not the caissons on the other side of the Gamma Quadrant that did this.
Well, we had watched Invincible, wasn't it? No, on Netflix prior to this, and you made a comment about the one superhero being an a-hole because he was telling the truth, and that was Styles' role in this. Like Styles was just kind of he was being Captain Obvious. He was telling them. Who do you think it is?
Right.
Who else could it be?
Who else could it be? Right. And then he gave some specifics, and he said, I just painted like a bird of prey. And
you find out that Styles' ancestors were in that war 100 years ago, and he lost like 4.
A captain Styles, 2 commanders,
yeah, and 1 other person. Yeah. So 4 of his ancestors fought in this battle and may or may not have made it through, and. Clearly, dude grew up hearing Romulan nightmare stories because he's like, Romulans. Oh, we got to fight the Romulans. I mean, dude is just, I'm picturing this guy. I hadn't really thought about it when we looked at it before, but this time I'm listening to him and I'm like, this dude's bouncing on Grandpa's knee and he's hearing stories about Romulans.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Dad's talking about Romulans.
Yes.
Boy, you see that ship with a bird painted on it?
Yeah, one day we're going to kill Romulans. I mean...
Boy, you joining Starfleet, you go get some back for the Styles family.
Styles joined Starfleet talking about when do we get to kill Romulans.
That's right.
He's in boot camp. He's in boot camp talking about just looking to kill some Romulans, sir. And they're like, dude, we haven't seen a Romulan in 100 years. He's like, they coming. They coming.
Never seen them.
Right.
They were fighting with old ships, old technology, and they never saw the enemy face to face.
You know what I thought of when I was a kid was like an Apollo command module with like nuclear weapon rockets just taped to the side and just detonating these things and just seeing them spin off into space. And
yeah. I used to picture like the old Buck Rogers rocket ships, flailing nukes back and forth.
I never really thought of it. I never put that much intent into what it looked like in the battle of that day.
Well, they said no quarter given.
It said there was no way to give quarter.
Yeah,
they couldn't communicate.
Right.
Well, just subspace radio.
In the old ships, once you puncture the hole, you're done.
Yeah, there was no way to rescue anybody.
Ain't no force field blocking the hole.
No.
Plus you're flinging nukes at each other, so. It's not like somebody missed.
So
yeah. So Styles goes on. Styles gives you like, his brief family history and where all his Romulan hate comes from. And they begin to Spock, after Outpost 4 is taken out, Rip Hansen. Spock actually does pick up movement with the ship's sensors.
Yes, he does.
And they go to visual, and Kirk's like, I don't see anything. And Spock's like, there's something out there, and it's moving. Mm-hmm. So Kirk's like, all right, shadow it. And then Spock begins to get a transmission. And he's like,
before that, as soon as he says, shadow it, Hanson like, are we going to overtake it?
Don't you mean intercept?
Yeah, what's going on here, Captain?
And Kirk, true to form, goes, I said shadow. I'm in charge. Shut up. And Styles is like, well, I got to tell you. He's like, I heard you. And I said shadow and be quiet.
And we find out relatively quickly in the storytelling that the Romulan commander has a Styles he's trying to deal with.
Right.
He's got a straight up political officer on board.
Yeah.
A connected his third officer is connected to the government.
And he's a warmonger like Styles.
Yeah, he wants to
Bet you he had family when he was in a Romulan boot camp.
Yeah. And I can't wait to kill me some humans.
Give me some humans.
Yeah. They should have just put him and Styles out on a planet with some knives.
Fight it out.
Would you half white? Shut up, you half black.
Would you want your future to be governed by Styles winning? No.
Hey, you know what? I give Styles a phaser and a couple power packs. I think he get it done. Styles was fired up. So hey.
Against a Romulan who should be physically stronger than him, coming from Vulcan DNA?
I didn't say fisticuffs. I didn't say fisticuffs.
I never thought the Romulans had superior strength.
They never. That's actually a valid point. Even though they established that Vulcans are stronger, in the Romulan episodes, you never see it. You never see a Romulan.
That's because they can't, theoretically, since they're the same race.
Yeah.
They should
offshoot of the same.
They should have the same physical capabilities.
Well, it makes sense though, evolutionary.
You get into gravity of planets and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they would develop a more aggressive society if they were physically weaker.
Yeah, possible.
So
you never see them fighting a Romulan like in other episodes where they go up against the Romulans. You never see the Romulans being stronger.
No. Well, if we go out of canon, which is the original show, and we get to J.J. Abrams's Star Trek, the Romulans are physically stronger.
They are, but that's the only time you see it.
In the bad robot remakes of Star Trek.
But
now is that just because it's a mining ship? So it would be like beaming over to an oil rig. I would expect every single person on there to be able to handle.
No, Dystrom's right. In JJ's version, they are.
Whoa! Say that again.
No. In JJ's version, the Romulans are like significantly stronger.
Okay.
But
I need to take over the control.
That's an alternate universe.
Because I always thought what the Romulans were is they were like espionage and sneaky.
That is their main bag. Their main bag is manipulation and espionage. And
like who are the face dancers in Dune?
Tealaxu.
The Tealaxu. So, but
you're looking for the button. I am great.
Yeah, I'm looking for it, but that's what Arthurs are for, man.
Where's the control? Where's the thing? Where's the notes?
The notebook. Do you see a notebook? I don't see a notebook.
Can you find it?
Yeah, look. Anyway, so Styles goes through his whole diatribe. Kirk shuts him down, as we've seen before, and Spock chimes in and says that he's picking up.
Uhura says
she's picking up chatter. Yeah.
Code.
Yeah. Spock links in and says, I think I can access it.
No, Styles says maybe Spock can translate it for us.
Oh, that comes later.
That comes later. That's later. Yeah. This is the first reveal.
Because he's got to reveal. You got to reveal what they look like.
And I never really paid attention to this before, but Spock actually hacks their
carrier channel.
Hacks their carrier channel and turns on their monitor on their ship.
Yeah.
So they can see them. I mean, that's the level of what Spock has to do. I never really thought about it before. It's like, wait a minute, that's not just tapping into somebody's communications. That's a little bit beyond. So they hack it, and of course you get the big reveal that Romulans look like Vulcans. Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun.
Everyone is looking at the monitor except Styles is staring
Styles
at
looks at Spock.
Spock.
Spock's looking at Styles like, what's your deal, man?
He's like, well, if I can't kill a Romulan, I'm going to kill me a Vulcan.
Spock's like, Styles is like, aha. Traitor, I found my spy. So the big reveal that Romulans look like Vulcans. And of course, Styles has his comments, and one of the subtexts or one of the underlying things of this episode is racism.
Right.
And Kirk checks Styles. He's like, there's no room for that on my bridge.
Leave your bigotry in your room.
Yeah.
Well, Uhura says, I made a copy of the tape, and
that's when
Kirk says, send it to the code breakers, basically. And then Styles goes, why don't you give it to Spock? And he says, what did you say? And he said, nothing, sir. He said, no, repeat it. And he goes, I said you should give it to Spock. And he said, oh, you're complimenting him on his ability to break a secret code. And he goes, I'm not sure, sir. And then Kirk just spins him around and goes, listen, leave your bigotry in your cabin. There's no room for it on my bridge.
On my bridge.
Right.
Do I make myself clear?
Now,
I think he could have. I think could have gave him a fresh one right there. I would have.
Hold on. Let's look at what this implies. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
If that's how you feel. Yeah.
If that's how you feel. You can keep it to yourself. It's not allowed here.
Right.
But we live in a day where you can't even what? Keep it to yourself. We live in
the implication of it.
Today is your thoughts have to be expunged.
Wow. Yeah. But I'm not doing that either. But what I was thinking about was when this came out in 1966. That's kind of a big deal.
I mean, when you saw it in 1970 something.
No, I'm talking about when it came out in 1966, when the episode aired. To have a primetime TV show come at this topic this way.
Well, he threw that in to subvert the thoughts of the day, racism.
But that's what I mean. It's a direct confrontation of the issue. It's a primetime TV show is saying this is wrong.
Another point that Kirk makes, and he goes when Styles tells him about his family and all the Styles that came before who died in this war. So he goes, that's their war, Mr. Styles.
It's not your war.
That's what happened to them.
Right.
It didn't happen to you.
Right.
This is a different era, a different day.
Well, this episode was filmed 2 years after the 14th Amendment, civil rights.
Right.
So 1964. Let's assume it was written a year before it was filmed. So I mean, we're just looking at civil rights,
right,
in the United States at this time.
That's what I'm getting at. This is a big deal for the time it was done. This is a direct confrontation of the racial issue, and it's well done because, as Daystrom's alluding to, today everything is so heavy-handed and so the message. They're telling a very compelling story, and right in the context of that story, they slip in a very relevant, poignant thing. It's like hey.
Well, that was the thing too on the Romulan with Decius, who's urging his captain to kill.
Yeah.
He's saying, do it for the Empire, do it for the Praetor.
Right.
It is our duty to do it. Styles is saying, kill those dirty mother pumping Romulans.
Those
like he's
scumbag.
coming from a position of hate and prejudice. And we talked about this, I think, in the first go of this before the Redux version that we're doing now is that I was almost on the Romulan side. The portrayal of Starfleet wasn't exactly Emily Post.
Yeah, Styles is so much of a jerk that you're almost like,
well, he's what, fifth from command? I mean, he's not that far from the top.
He's a navigator. He's a lieutenant. A lot of people would have to go down before he ends up.
He's on the bridge.
Well, you have a couple of ways of looking at it. You have the race connotation, and then you have the others. Remember, we just come out of World War II, not too far after that.
Right.
You have the Germans, and you have the
Japanese,
and the
Italians,
and the Italians who are
The Access powers.
Who are the others?
Yeah, they're the enemy.
The others, the enemy. And Styles said, "Look, I lost family to the
enemy.
What happened in World War II, where we put Japanese in concentration camps?
Yeah.
During the time of the conflict.
Right.
So there's a way of looking at it from race, as in black and white, and there's a way of looking at it from cultural enemies.
Yeah. Relatively recent conflicts between groups that are people still have animosity about.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I think, too, for me, the parallels are with the Romulan officers. They talk about hundreds of battles, and it's their own personal experiences that are giving them their perspective and point of view on their enemy.
Mm-hmm.
With Styles, it's this generational bigotry
Yeah,
that's
he's
been
been
handed down
taught.
to him.
Well,
he's been taught to hate a group of people.
We don't know who the Romulans were fighting when the captain of the Romulan vessel and the Centurion were talking.
Yeah, it's not the humans.
They've been fighting. He said hundreds of battles. They've been fighting somebody else.
Well, and some of the other stories fill in, and this isn't necessarily canon. We Star Trek fans get into canon, non-canon battles, but there is some thought that at some point in the Romulan history, before they began conflicting with humans again, that they had conflict with the Klingons and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things they fill in. So, but the Romulans are out there for a period of time. The Romulans are out there being aggressive towards other species before they recontact humanity. So, but this whole tension is set, and they maintain it through the rest of the episode pretty well. That Romulans and Vulcans are related, and I wonder, was that a budgetary decision, or did somebody really think that through and think it'd be really cool?
I think they thought it through.
It'd be really cool to do this and have this connection.
Well, I think if you look at Nazi Germany as an enemy and you look at the Soviet Union as an enemy, the uniforms might be different, but the faces are the same.
Yeah.
So
except for Japan.
Right, except for Japan. But I think Klingons are Japanese, and I think Romulans and Vulcans are Germans and Russians. I think that was Roddenberry's point. I mean, it's a big leap, but I'm just saying the only difference is the uniforms.
Yeah, there are Cold War parallels. I always kind of felt like because it was the Cold War, I always thought about the Chinese and the Russians, because that fits into Jim's thing. It's still our communist threat. And I always felt like maybe the Romulans were the Chinese and the Klingons were the Russians.
But see
the way they portrayed the society.
But see the way Roddenberry, or way it was done in this generation of Trek, it was not obvious. You didn't have someone coming on a talk show or putting out in print that these groups of Klingons are representing X.
Yeah.
It's not heavy-handed.
No, it's not done that way.
You're left to make up that assumption for yourself.
Right.
Not someone telling you,
the
virtue signaling, telling you their point of view of it.
Right. The aspects of it are there, but no, they're not heavy-handed with it at all, and they leave you to make your own decisions about that. That's how I always kind of interpreted it, because of how the two different groups moved.
Well, that's right, but it's left up to the audience,
right?
Not some producer saying,
we
designed it for it to look like
this person we don't like,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Or this group we don't like, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because as I stated before, for most of the episode, I was rooting for the Romulans.
Yes.
Well, and this is where the scene cuts. Go ahead.
More for the Romulan commander.
Yeah, you have respect for him immediately.
Not so much the Romulans, but the Romulan commander. You
empathize with him.
You empathize. You want the Romulan commander to get home, because the way he operates, he seems like
He's
honorable man.
Honorable.
An honorable man. He's not going out of his way to screw somebody over. He's doing the job that's given unto him. He makes the comment he doesn't necessarily like. He even makes the comment when he's talking to the Centurion. He said, when they have their conversation, that what this means. Yeah. I almost hope that we don't make it home.
Well, he says,
that's the next scene coming up when it cuts to the Romulan ship.
Yeah.
Right. Because the Romulan commander and his second, the Centurion, they're old friends and they've been together forever and they've been through all these things together. And like you said, he's confiding in his friend, I don't want to win this one.
And he tells him, he lays it out for him. He goes, listen, you know what? When we get back with the Earthmen's weakness,
what's happening,
and you know what's going to happen.
We go to war again,
and we show them how effective our weapons are against them, and we're delivering our gift to the fatherland or motherland or whatever term he used was another war.
Yeah, we get to go to war again, and I don't want to do that.
Well, right. The Centurion is completely bought into the Romulan doctrine. He goes, if we're not the strongest, shouldn't we not go to war? I mean, isn't that a good thing? We're the strongest. This is what we're supposed to conquer. And the captain is like, man,
must it always be that way?
Must it always be so?
Right. Is that
how many friends have we lost?
Right.
How many battles have we been through? Do we really have to? He's like, I don't want to play this game anymore.
Right. He's like, this is not necessary. There's no he's whatever they're indoctrinated in their society about pursuing glory and power and whatever. He's like, man, look, this is just death, and I've had my fill of it.
He didn't go there, but you could have written a line in there. How many young lives do we have to lose for the glory of the empire?
Right.
He pretty much says that when
he pretty much says it, but that line itself is not in there.
When the young sub commander comes at him, that's more or less what he's saying is like, how many lives until the Praetor is happy, how many people have to be lost.
But he has his own styles and his young Romulan hothead.
Yeah.
And the only reason they got the Spock was able to crack the code is because the young guy on the Romulan ship decided to send a message,
send the transmission of our victory. Yeah.
Then when the Romulan captain goes, look, you sent this message, Joe Bob,
when we were running silent.
Right. You broke code. I probably could space you, but I'm just gonna bust you down
two ranks.
And the Centurion goes, yo, I don't know if you want to do that. This he's son of the president. You might not want to go there.
He got political connection.
Yeah, you might not want to go there.
And the Centurion says something, great line. He says something about fear or something. They deal in fear or whatever. And he's like, fear and I are old companions.
Yeah.
The captain says,
I'm not worried about this guy.
I'm not worried about it.
I'm not worried about this guy. And also in this, the Romulan helmsman calls out that there's a reflection, a shadow. And they're discussing it, and the helmsman is just convinced that it's a sensor shadow that's characteristic of the cloaking device.
Well, the tension that exists for the rest of the episode is that he has a bridge crew that's constantly telling him, look, the cloaking device is not, it's like turbo in Galaxy Quest. It's for short bursts. You're not supposed to hold the turbo button down because your deuterium sphere will be ruptured. And so he's constantly, he's like, leave the cloak on, and they're like, it consumes much fuel. His guys are trying to tell him, like, this is probably not the way that we should be doing things. And he goes, well, luckily I'm in command, and it's because the navigator says something like, in my judgment, we run from a reflection.
Right.
And he goes, well, luckily my judgment prevails here.
Yes.
Oh, they would have been long since dead.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for their commander, and that it's a battle of two captains.
Yes, it is.
It's definitely a captain's episode. Mm-hmm. You have two capable leaders, and the only thing that separates them is not necessarily the crew, because it wasn't something that Spock did that was so great. It wasn't the crew difference. It was the difference of the ships themselves
and the intellect of the captains.
Both captains are compatible in intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk's got a better ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I would venture to introduce was that a MiG pilot, I think it was a MiG-17 pilot, defected and flew to somewhere, Japan or something, and Yeager went over there. Chuck Yeager went over there. Famous American ace. And they had I don't know if it was a Phantom or a Super Saber. But anyways, Yeager took the MiG up, and an American was in the Saber or whatever, was going to dogfight with him, and Yeager beat him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yeager came down and switched planes, and then Yeager beat the MiG.
All right.
So it's, to a certain extent, it's the aircraft or the pilot. But in this case, be interesting. If the Romulan commander had a Constitution class starship and Kirk was in the Romulan ship, how long do you think that battle would have lasted?
I think the outcomes would have been similar.
I think the Romulan commander would have won.
I do too.
The
reason is because his experience, like Kirk is good. Kirk in Starfleet is great, but he doesn't have hundreds of battles like this guy does.
He's a golden boy. The only reason the Romulan commander lost is because his ship wasn't up to the snuff.
Well, there's checks and balances between the two ships. But the Enterprise has speed and shielding over the Romulans, impulse drive and little or no shielding. The Romulans are holding all the aces and weaponry.
You got to have some cojones to go out in that bird of prey.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
And it's a small ship.
Impulse power.
Yeah. It's a small ship. It's slow by Star Trek standards. You're not going far.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, their only claim to fame was we can cloak, and we got this world-ending weapon.
Right, we got a big stick,
and we're ringing the batteries on this ship every time we pull the trigger or cloak. You know, thing.
And that's the point I'm making. If he had a little bit better ship, a little bit faster ship, I don't think Kirk would have won.
I don't think Kirk would have had a chance because I think he just would have warped into the neutral zone.
Yeah, he would have just escaped. You know, but so at this point, the Romulan commander figures out that, or suspects that Kirk is shadowing him. They still make for home, but the Romulan commander begins to maneuver to try to confirm his suspicions. Kirk's having them shadow the ship.
There's a couple of key points. Before they tap in and see the Romulans, the Romulan commander makes a turn lazily.
Right.
And Kirk's like, hold on, that's strange. He goes,
it's not an aggressive turn.
Right. He said, can they see us? He sort of comes to the conclusion that the cloaking device shields them from
it works both ways.
It works both ways. They can't see out of it.
And Spock confirms it.
And so that's why Kirk wants to shadow him. Mm-hmm. So that's Achilles' heel number one. The Romulan commander can't see, right?
Not when he's cloaked.
And then later on, we get to the point where the Romulan commander gets wind of that he's being followed. He pops his head out, poof, of the invisibility, and he drops a big wet one on Kirk and the boys.
Well, that's coming up. But
the other thing I think that part of his Achilles heel by having impulse and not warp is with warp. I think you could, if I was coming out of an engagement, I wouldn't necessarily set a course of 111 Mark 14 because that's a course back to Romulus and Remus, right?
Dead giveaway.
It's a dead giveaway. So it's, if you had warp, what you could do is you could kind of zigzag home and throw somebody off. But every time he had an encounter, he went back to the same heading, and that was heading towards
111
home.
Mark 14.
Well,
so it confirmed, at least in Kirk's mind, that this is Romulans.
Mm-hmm.
Up until that point, he could have pressed the argument that, well, it could basically, it smells like a horse and it sounds like a horse, but we haven't seen it, so it could be a zebra.
So what happens is the Kirk decides to have a conference.
They go in the briefing room to discuss.
All senior staff, let's sit down and let's talk about this because we got a decision to make.
Right.
The Federation is willing to sacrifice every base
and
on the neutral zone, or at the edge of the neutral zone, and every one of our lives to prevent us from having a war.
Right. So
we have to decide. They're willing to let the Romulans come and kill us to keep from being dragged into a conflict.
Yeah, and in the context of that reality, Kirk's real decision is, do I pursue this intruder who has committed an act of war, who has killed I don't know how many people, I don't know how many people are on those outposts, or in the name of avoiding a war, do I let him go?
Right.
And that's the discussion in the briefing room, and that's when we find out about Castrodinium, when Spock walks in with the
sheet metal,
sheet metal and smashes it on the table and says, "This is the hardest substance."
He doesn't even smash on it. He crumbles it in his hand.
Man. So they do an analysis of what they know and kind of talk about what we just talked through. Clearly a powerful weapon system. However, this cloaking device, they've got that kind of figured out. And I found it interesting because later on in Star Trek, cloaking devices kind of become the end-all, be-all. They're handled really well in the original series. They're more of a visual and casual sensors don't pick them up. But if you really start looking, it's still a physical object moving through space and you can find it.
Right.
It's very logical. Later on, they become like this magic trick thing where unless you pull a rabbit out of your hat, you can't find them.
That's just weak writing once again.
Yeah, you can't find them later on. But so they have the briefing, and of course, Styles is like, you know, we got to kill him. We got to go after him. We can't possibly let him go. And
so I have a little bit of a left field theory, so I need you two to help me with it. So Spock attended the Vulcan Science Academy, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I would say I think it was Discovery with Archer, that the Vulcans were sort of like in a position to have relations with us, but they weren't really giving us a whole heck of a lot, and they weren't telling us everything about what was out there.
In the Enterprise series, that's what they say, yeah.
So, and I don't know if I was
holding people back.
I don't know if I was contaminated by that or not, but when Styles says to Spock, he goes, "You know that, Mr. Spock. Why don't you admit it? Why don't you say that they're an aggressive, warring species and that we need to attack because if we show weakness, they're going to come at them?" And what I was thinking is that what Styles was saying is that you went to the Vulcan Science Academy. You know a lot more about space than what you share with us because maybe he's not allowed to. In other words, let's say that the Vulcans know about the Borg and they know about all the Q and they know about all this other stuff, but they're not telling Star Trek. So I don't know if it was just like him just saying as a science officer, you know something that we don't know that's been published in Starfleet. But I thought my left field theory is that Styles was saying is that you're a Vulcan and you know more about space than you ever let on to us, and you know more about the Romulans than what you're telling us. So why don't you just knock off the games and say what it is that you know about the Romulans?
No, I just think it was Styles saying, you know, you're one of them.
Yeah, I disagree with you,
yeah,
Captain Palpatine, because the Enterprise continuum, and I mean that by saying the Enterprise show, put forth that view of the Vulcans. Yeah. Remember, this is 100 years later,
right?
Yeah.
Star Trek, the original series is
about 100 years after Enterprise.
After Enterprise,
almost.
So that time period of them not sharing information is over.
Actually, that was one of the things.
Because there is a full Vulcan ship in the Federation.
Yeah, the Intrepid.
So they've completely integrated.
And the other problem, one thing about Enterprise for the time period it was supposedly set in, and of course they had canon problems, they didn't stick to it. You really should have seen the Human-Romulan War in that show. It was about the right time period. Yeah, they did everything but they branched off into all this other far-flung stuff. But for that time period, that's really what you should have saw.
Right.
But then
that limits your writing ability.
It sure does. And then the Enterprise in that series can't be as advanced as it was, and you got to be flinging nukes around.
Well, I mean, you end up with Hogan's Heroes. I mean, you can do an episodic television show that's about the same war for years. I mean, you just need good writers.
It's not Star Trek. You need good writers.
You do need good writers. That helps.
But so when you were saying Styles was like, I didn't get it so much as secret information. I took it more like,
it was just
like the Admiral was saying.
It's just Styles being like,
yeah,
you're one of them.
Yeah, you're one of them.
It was more
okay.
You know more about this and what's going on. And Spock goes, I agree with you, Styles.
Yeah.
If they are, from what we see, there are offshoots of the Vulcan race, and they're like we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
We absolutely cannot let them go back home.
Right, because they were going to come for us.
And that's a blind side. Nobody would have thought Spock would have agreed with Styles.
Right.
Because if you look at everybody in the room, they're like, hold on, Spock, you're supposed to be fighting against this lunatic Styles.
Well, McCoy's even there going like, are you crazy, man?
Well, McCoy, of course, is like, look, we don't need to get into a war. McCoy is on the page of whatever we got to do to avoid a war is what we should do.
Right.
We should go home. We should let it go. Whatever we
gotta
need to do.
McCoy's over there talking to the computer. Destruct code 1A.
Right. If we got to lay our heads on the chopping block and die here, so that millions and billions of people can survive, that's what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And Spock's point of view and Styles' point of view is the Romulan mindset. We cannot let them get back.
And what makes it powerful in that scene, one, since they've established Styles' bigotry, and he's attacking Spock on that basis. Spock, coming from a place of logic, not emotion, arrives at the same conclusion.
Right.
He's like, no, you're right. If they're like we think they are, we got to kill them.
If they're like what we used to be.
Right.
He said, if they're like what we used to be.
Right. What we think they are, what we think they could be.
Right. We can't let them get back. Now, where you draw? Well, how do you come to? How do you think they're like what we used to be? Because of what they did. Mm-hmm. They didn't come over and with a peace flag and say, "Oh, we want to now talk to you." They came out,
sneak attack,
and they destroyed
Pearl Harbor.
They destroyed 3 bases.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I thinking I can talk to them after they destroyed 3 bases?
It's a terrorist attack.
Actually, 4 total.
Terrorist attack.
2, 3, 4, and 8.
So it's a foregone conclusion. Mm-hmm. The question is, will they stop? Why would they stop?
Not if they're winning.
So that's the issue. Either I stop them or this will continue.
Or it escalates.
And from Spock's point of view, Vulcan doctrine back in that day was, if you're winning, press the advantage.
Of course. That's anybody's doctrine.
Which is what the Centurion says on the Romulan vessel.
Right.
The Centurion says, if we're not the more powerful, isn't it our right to conquer?
Yeah.
Now that's foreign to us in the Western society.
Not really.
It is to a point. We don't just go and take over.
Now.
I'm talking in today's sensibility. We don't go and just take over because we have the power.
It's more of a soft shoe now, but it's the same result.
So it still might makes right?
Yeah.
Always.
Underneath it all, yes. Yes. It's just approached differently. Instead of overtly like breaking out the weapons, it's done through economics and leverage and so on and so forth, and the threat of, or the possibility of, but it's the same thing.
It's not the same thing. It might equal the same outcome, but it's not the same thing. Me coming in with economic abilities and overshadowing you that way is different than me just kicking your door in with a gun. You don't have to trade with me. I might be able to overcome you in trade and take all your trading partners from you because I have a better deal. That's not the same as me kicking down your door with a gun and saying, okay, I'm now in charge. You lost because of trade.
Yeah,
the Romulans are not doing this because of trade.
They did it overtly.
They're doing it overtly.
But on a national scale, you're talking about, you're talking about holding hands before we kiss. If you come at me economically and you're crushing me economically, what is my option? What is my option to stop you?
You either get on board or you up your game.
Or I go to war.
Or you go to war.
So it's the same thing. That's how that last big one.
No,
started.
it's the same outcome. It's not the same thing.
It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
It's different tactics.
It's not the same. It's not the same thing.
Economic pressures lead to.
Well, they do call it
to.
a trade war and not a.
It leads to, but it's not. It's not like. It's not the overt action.
It just takes you longer to get there.
Well, you starve to death instead of burning.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you can join in. Look at Japan.
You mean surrender?
Japan joined in, and look at them now.
They didn't join.
They joined.
No, they didn't join.
They joined.
There's a picture of them signing some papers on a battleship.
But now they're part.
Yeah, they part.
Of the whole.
Yeah, they part.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
But they're not on their own. You know, I mean, I think modern. I think that you're right in that trade sanctions have become sort of the warfare now. I know there's a lot of concern about Russia and China and that, but I mean, if you don't have a navy that can transport 1 million men to the coasts of America and get them there safely and then resupply them, I mean, the problem with conventional war now is that it would have to be carried out on such a scale, and technology is so advanced. I think Nimitz said that a U.S. aircraft carrier in a real global exchange, if it was docked, it would last 2 days. If it was at sea, it would be 1 day. So, I mean, you can't, that's one of the reasons I think that we haven't had these global conflicts like we did twice, is because the technology has basically made it so
far
that
outstretched our ability to overcome them.
Right.
Tactical nukes deal with that. But as we look, the conflict between the two captains, each captain has a conflict within his ship. Yep. Kirk has Styles, and the Romulan commander has Decius. And each captain has to overcome their conflict. Now, Styles has found a friend in Spock, the guy he was accusing, and Spock has agreed that we can't let them get back to the neutral zone.
And Kirk hatches a plan. There's a comet passing by. And in their discussions, they understand that if the Romulan passes through the comet, they will be visible. They will be much more trackable. And they're going to go in and try to ambush the Romulan by circling around the trajectory of the comet and catching the Romulan coming out of the other side.
And blast him to smithereens.
Yes, with phasers set on proximity spread pattern.
Burst.
Proximity burst pattern.
Let's look at this. He's not going to circumvent the comet and wait for the Romulan to come out and put targeting lights on him and say surrender or else.
No.
He's taking
a shot. He's going to kill him.
He's going straight to destroying him.
Yes, that's the decision that's been made.
Do you think that would be written that way today?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, they did. Would.
No, they wouldn't.
Yes, they would.
No, the captain has to have an opportunity to talk. Oh yeah.
No, because they actually just did it. But
well, to your point, in the Abrams Romulans, they hail the ships first
to talk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hello, Christopher.
To talk first. Give him a chance to surrender.
Gotta monologue it. Wouldn't be written this way today. No.
I think at this point in the episode, the outcome would be the same. Because they've had time to noodle it out and
they haven't had time to
discuss their.
He hasn't had during this episode. Nowhere has the two captains had time to converse.
Well, no, but this is better writing, as we often. That's the point.
That's what my question is. Would it be written this way today? The two captains agree. You've been overruled, so it doesn't matter what your thoughts are.
No, I disagree. I think it depends on the show and the writer.
Oh.
I think it depends on the show and the writer.
I don't think there's any writers that good.
There's a few still around.
So
I think the problem is that no one is willing to write an antagonist in a story as being likable and identifiable, because then you have to create elements in the story and be creative in a way that brings out these hard decisions. And I think they think that for the most part we're too stupid to follow a story like that.
I don't think they think we're too stupid. I think they're just too lazy to do it.
I think it's both. I think one breeds the other. Somewhere along the way, somebody decided that the audience was not really paying attention and that they are stupid. So why put forth the effort to write a tight story when I don't have to? If I can make money feeding them garbage, then I can be lazy and I can feed them garbage because they eat the garbage. I think the two things are related. I think one leads to the other.
Okay.
So I would here's how I would contemporarily write the Hansen thing, because what Kirk is consistent in this is that it's really not personal. He says at one point, he goes, "I won't underestimate him again," but Kirk is not carrying a bloodlust forward after seeing Hansen be incinerated before his eyes.
No, it's two professionals.
A brother officer slaughtering human beings, and he would have this, like you said, most characters now are written as children. They're not written as adults.
Yeah.
Kirk's response to watching a fellow officer be incinerated on an asteroid was not
emotional.
It was not emotional.
And if it was written today, Hansen would have been his.
He would have died in his arms.
No, Hansen would have been his Starfleet classmate or something, and they would have known each other.
That's the whole point. That's the point I'm getting at.
He would have come on and he would have been just like with Decker. Jim, it's Jim Kirk.
Thank you for agreeing to my point. It wouldn't be written this way today.
I'm just disagreeing on the point of
you agree
the requirement of dialogue.
I am great.
I can't.
You
find
are
it.
great.
No, I can't find it. I don't know where it is.
You are great. I am great.
Look at that. One button. It's right there. It's the yellow one. It's the yellow one. No, it's the one up.
You are great. I am great.
So
we're invincible. Look what we've done. Your
Mighty starships.
So Kirk hatches his plan, and well, to Jim's point, they can't seem to write an antagonist in that.
That's Jake.
That's Jake. Hi, Jake. They can't seem to write an antagonist who's not maniacally evil.
Right.
What you have here is two professionals.
Yes.
Like you said, there's no bloodlust, there's no emotions. It's I'm a professional, he's a professional. We have something we have to do, back to duty, which brings us into conflict. The Romulan commander is not an evil man per se. James Kirk is not an evil man. Neither one of them wants this. To the point where they both, great performance, they lament this. This is bad. Even as it's happening, this is not good. There's no good outcome here. But they can't, the villain now has to be this lunatic.
Right.
Who takes candy from babies and pushes old ladies downstairs,
Like you just can't be Thanos with a plan to just say, I think the universe has got too many people in it. We need to eliminate it. You've got to kill your daughter.
You
have to kill your daughter to get a gem.
Well, yeah. So you can't just write somebody who's rational and relatable that you can empathize with, who just happens to have a different point of view.
That's it.
That's why the Thanos character works so well, is because they did do that. They wrote what you would think is a rational person, and people really enjoyed it because you could see, although you might have thought it was nutty, he wasn't a cackling madman.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He was very measured. He was very patient in how he did it.
Methodical.
The writing nowadays doesn't match that. And I doubt if Marvel will ever be able to produce something like that again. But in this story, you're looking, as I said before, the two captains. And now James T, they went through the comet
Well, we're at that point.
Well, they're going through the comet, and while the Romulan commander, he's in the midst of it, his officer goes, the sensor goes, is no longer there. And the Romulan commander goes,
he immediately knows something is wrong.
he goes reverse or
Evasive
maneuver number one or something like that.
And he changes because he goes, I was being followed and I'm not being followed anymore. I'm being set up for a trap.
So somebody's baking a cake for me.
Right. I'm being set up for a trap. And then they show the Romulan commander and his crew, and they sort of show. What's funny is they show the difference in the ships,
right?
Because the whole Romulan ship jerks.
Well,
everybody's holding on to stuff.
The Bird of Prey is significantly smaller than the Enterprise,
but
too.
It's showing the vessel itself is just as big a character as the two captains.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So then they flip over to the Enterprise, and they're waiting for the Romulan to come out, and he doesn't come out. And they're like, well, Spock like, well, we lost him. And Kirk goes,
take evasive action.
Take evasive action.
And fire.
But when he says that, you hear the sound, but the ship doesn't move.
Right.
There's no jerking to the side. There's a huge difference in vessels.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pinto, Cadillac.
And then Kirk goes, fire. Blanket fire. He's out here somewhere.
Shotgun.
Let's light him up.
Yeah, shotgun.
Depth charges.
That cake we had baked for him, let's give it to him.
Yep. And in spite of not having a good target, they score some hits.
They score a hit good enough for a bulkhead to break loose
and fall on the Centurion.
and fall. It was going to fall on the captain. The
Right.
Centurion pushed him out the
way.
way.
Yeah.
And it kills the Centurion a little bit later on.
He dies.
He dies from it. But once again, the difference in ships.
Yeah. That.
Boy, we didn't see that Romulan flight surgeon run up to the bridge, did we?
No.
Don't think there is one.
They got a first aid kit.
I don't think there's a McCoy.
I don't think so.
They laid that dude on the floor on the bridge and was like, "You are dying, bro. You are dying. Sorry, man."
But it once again, you see the wit of the two captains. As soon as the Romulan captain recognizes it, he does something.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he does something, Kirk goes, he does something. Kirk ups the ante.
Right.
I'm not waiting around. My job is to blast you. We ain't talking. We ain't chit-chatting about this.
Right.
You already destroyed 4 bases. I'm breaking the foot.
I aim to kill you.
I've come to do you harm.
Right. I'm not letting you get home. And the Centurion and the commander maneuvers the Romulan ship around, eventually decloaks as the Centurion dies.
Well, of course, right before that happens, we have a phaser overload.
Yeah.
On the Enterprise, so they're not able to shoot.
And that was something that jumped out at me that I hadn't paid attention to before. That's a little bit like, They wanted to show Spock fixing the phasers, but instead of showing him go to a different part of the ship, because all through this episode, you're seeing main phaser control. You're seeing that room.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When the phasers break down, they want to show you Spock fixing the phasers. So Spock gets on the floor on the bridge, opens up the access panel pretty much right next to his workstation and starts working. And I'm like, that's not, it's just a little thing that jumped out at me like, that's not quite right.
You know what I was thinking, though? I was thinking, he said it was a transfer coil. And what I was thinking is that even though the phaser control is to generate the phaser the pulse, that the targeting is tied into the bridge, and that the transfer coil is there to transfer the data into what do they call it? A firing solution. So I think it was their way of analog computer saying that he did
a lot of work to justify that.
He dressed it up nicely.
He did a lot of work.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't agree with you, but you did a whole lot of work. You did a whole lot of work to get that.
That's mental gymnastics of a professional.
Yeah, you really spoke up for him there. I appreciate that. I don't think so at all. They made it sound like a key component of the actual phaser.
Yeah.
Well, and I was expecting purple gas to be leaking out on the bridge too.
Yeah, but if you had the budget, it would have been somewhere else. It would have been a little different. But it was done that way to give them not an out from from the plasma.
It sets the scene for what happens next.
I thought Scotty should be crawling up. What's the tube?
The Jeffries tube.
The Jeffries tube.
So
the Jeffries tube may not have been invented yet.
The phaser controller's down, and the bird of prey, after they took the shot, they survived it.
They try to fool the Enterprise.
No, the bird of prey comes out of cloak.
They dumped the debris first. They do the debris dump because they dumped the Centurion's body.
They dumped
the second debris dump.
They dumped the debris
because this is Jim's favorite part.
Yeah.
Because guess what else is in that debris?
No, they.
This is the first debris dump.
The first
debris dump. Then there's a shot, and then that's when
they dump the debris and the Centurion's body.
And the Centurion.
And Spock sees it
and he says, "Nah, this is not quite right.
Insufficient matter.
Insufficient matter. It's not enough for a whole ship."
And then the Romulan commander decloaks and lets fly.
Says, "I got a cake for you. You try to give me a cake? I got a German chocolate for you.
I got ice cream for you, Kirk.
I got something for you, Kirky boy."
Yep.
And he lets go, and Kirk immediately puts him in warp in reverse.
It's like the weapon is like a supernova. He's shooting a small star that's exploding.
Yeah. So they're getting chased by the plasma, and it's going to take 3 minutes for it to overtake them
because they're an emergency warp.
And that's
going backwards.
That's the funny thing, because there's a couple of time jumps in the episode, and it shows that Yeoman Rand comes up and goes, "Well, should I continue to take notes?"
Log
and all
entries.
this stuff? And Kirk's like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, keep taking notes. You're waiting for your death, and they're trying to back out of it, and then when it finally hits them, Costal gives them, how many minutes it's going to take, and it finally hits them, they survive it, and Kirk's like, strike number 2. You can't see when you're in cloak, and your weapon has a limited range. So that means I can just stay out of your range and pepper you all day long."
But let's not forget one of the key things to establish character here. So, when Yeoman Rand is seeing the impact being inevitable, she moves right up on Kirk.
Right on his back.
She comes up on him.
She's leaning on his back.
And as they count down, 6, 5, 4, you see Kirk turn. You don't see it all on camera, but you can tell he turns and he puts his arm around Rand and pulls her close.
I'm gonna die with a woman on my arm.
Comforts her.
Die with a woman on my arm.
Oh, don't be upset, ladies. You can grab the man of your choice when your death is near as well. So,
but we kid around a little bit. But what it's showing is that even what the writers allowed and what the director was a part of, and it was the actor's choice too, is that in those last few seconds, it's okay to be like a vulnerable human being that wants to just hug somebody,
have some comfort.
Because instead of just sitting there in the chair, I think that said a lot for the way that they were trying to portray Kirk and not so much Rand, because I think she did what was natural. It didn't seem like it was forced. It didn't imply that they had a relationship.
No.
It was Spock could have been standing in front of her and she probably would have moved forward. So but I mean those little details in the storytelling that and then when they get kind of blown against the railing, they're there together, and instead of Kirk looking and acknowledging to her that maybe they had a moment or whatever, he looks up at the screen and goes, "Limited range."
He's like, his head is still in the game.
Strike number 2.
His head is still in the game.
Strike number 2.
Yeah.
And on the Romulan ship, for a moment,
they thought
they got him. They thought the Enterprise had been destroyed because they're thinking, this is our weapon. Our weapon is amazing. They're not even factoring in that they could have possibly avoided it. So they know it impacted. They know there's damage. They've cloaked. They can't really see. And they're like, well, we got him, right? And the Romulan commander's like, I doubt it.
No, they do it, and then they go back and cloak. And they don't go back in the cloak. They start heading home again.
Right.
Because they think their weapon did it.
Yeah.
And when the Enterprise comes back up, they go, the one DC goes, it's not possible. It's not possible. They survived.
Well, think about what they saw. They decloaked. They saw a ship there. They launched their weapon, and then there was nothing there because they went into emergency warp.
And
So
they,
it's like,
and they haven't done an analysis to understand that the Enterprise is faster.
right,
That's their downfall.
right.
They don't know.
No, I think he mentions they're faster. I think the Romulan commander mentions they're faster.
No, he says he stays out of range.
Yeah. They don't seem to understand. I'm not going to say the Romulans didn't have warp capability. Outside of the series, they did say that, but they don't seem to understand that the Enterprise has warp and can put on some serious speed. They don't seem to have that knowledge.
So they think he's done.
For a moment.
They start heading back home.
Right.
And they're not in cloak.
Right.
And then the Romulan commander he goes, I feel a little itchy about this. He said, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. Put us back in cloak. And he's like, well, we're low on fuel and we're this and that. He goes, no, something don't feel right. I don't think this captain that we've been battling is going to go away that easy.
Right.
Anybody else? They were Ferengi. Yeah, they're done.
Mm.
Romulan. Oh yeah. I mean, Klingon. Yeah, we would have destroyed them. I don't know about this human boy.
Right.
So put us back in cloak, and then they start heading home again.
111 Mark 14.
Yep.
And Kirk opts to run silent on the ship.
No, he doesn't run silent until
After the nuke.
Well, yeah, I'm jumping ahead. So at this point, the Romulan, the Enterprise is 1 minute from the neutral zone
Right.
at their current speed.
right.
And they got to make the call.
Yep.
Are we going into the neutral zone or not? Kirk's already dispatched to Starfleet, and they think at that point it's 3 hours before they get a response.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they make the call to go into the neutral zone. Well, Kirk's hope is that they can catch them and attack again before they enter the neutral zone, but that doesn't work, and they end up going into the neutral zone in violation of treaty.
No, I don't think they went into the neutral zone.
Yeah, they did. They ultimately do go into the neutral zone. They actually do cross in.
Well, they start firing, and Style goes, a hit from here would be it'd be luck.
Crazy luck.
Crazy luck. And he starts firing. The Romulan gets hit again, and then they load up their debris again in the tubes, but then he places a nuclear weapon. Thank goodness it wasn't a thermonuclear weapon.
Well, that's after they run silent.
No, they run silent after, because when he detonates it. So what happens is Spock goes, sensor's not moving anymore, picking up debris, and Kirk goes, analysis quickly, and he goes, debris and one metal cased object, and he goes, hard over, point blank, phasers fire, and they shoot it, and it's a nuclear device that detonates 100 meters from the Enterprise. And they end up with what, 22
injured
casualties,
mostly radiations
from the outer portion of the ship. It just goes to show you how they build those in those starships in Iowa.
That's why I asked the question when he said casualties. I thought of 22 deaths, not 21 injuries.
Casualty is accounting for, the word casualty can mean injured or killed. It's a total number. McCoy actually calls out later in the episode, the only person who actually dies is Thomason.
Yeah.
So the 22 people are injured.
All right.
Now they're floating.
Yeah, this is when
then they go silent. They play dead.
And they play dead for 9 hours and 47 minutes.
9 hours. And that's another time jump.
Yeah, big one.
Yeah.
In the story. Mm-hmm. And they actually show it where Kirk goes to his cabin and he's laying there, and then
Rand shows up. He smiles.
McCoy shows up.
But this time they're waiting. They're just sitting there dead. And Styles is like, well, we got to be doing something. And Kirk, no, we're going to try to draw him back across the neutral zone. That's why they actually went over. Yeah. They got to the edge, but the Romulans went into the neutral zone.
Right.
He said, we got to draw them back because we got to destroy them on our side. Mm-hmm. So Kirk never crossed the neutral zone.
Right.
Okay. So, but here's the third strike against the Romulan, and it's the Romulan commander. The third strike against him altogether. one, his ship, it doesn't have the speed.
Right.
2, his weapon has a limited range, and 3, he has a bogus crew. He has a
Well, he's only got one bad apple.
well, the one bad apple caused him the problem because this one bad apple is politically connected,
DC.
which puts pressure on the captain to do something he rather would not have done.
Right.
Well, yes.
So
But I will say this: I think that there is. It was introduced earlier on that the Romulan said, "I find myself wishing for death," and right before Decius comes up and basically says, "Give me the honor of killing them." You know, they're laying there. We should just be able to kill him, and he's like, "No, I don't trust this captain." And
he says this captain is a sorcerer.
he's a sorcerer. But what I'm thinking is that at that point, because he says, we have damaged ourselves. Our fuel is exhausted. I think he knew that what Decius was telling him was probably going to lead to his destruction. And at that point, that was a choice that he made.
That's a possibility. That's a possibility.
Because he could have just fired.
That's a possibility. I'll give you that. What it comes down to, Decius' lust for glory.
Yeah.
The captain, and like I say, I'll give it to you. He could have just said no. They would have went back and they had the war. And
Decius probably would have got him hung out. The commander hung out to dry.
But he says, "Oh no, I'm not going to give you this honor.
Yeah.
If this is what you're pushing, I'll take it myself."
Right.
And he comes back. And Kirk lays a foot brake off on him.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah. Well, no, by then, they find the Enterprise because Spock accidentally hits the switch, which causes Styles to say, see, look.
We passed that. That was during the first.
No, this is when the Enterprise is running silent. This is it.
Yeah.
Remember Spock
says
reaches,
the coil is giving out.
Spock goes back to fixing the phasers.
Yeah, he tells.
No. This is the running silent part was when the first nuclear bomb was done, and they thought they were.
There was only one nuclear.
Not the first nuclear bomb. When they shot the plasma, and they thought the Enterprise was done, and then they were running silent.
No. There was only one. There was only one. 9 hours and 43 minutes. Because remember, it was just hanging there, and he just shut all his power down.
Right.
In the first one, what happened was that
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I've caught up now.
That's all right.
So Spock hits the switch, gives away the Enterprise's position. Kirk's brings everything fully online, calls battle stations. Now that's when they give you the information that because of the problems with the phaser circuits, only phaser bank number 1 is working. And Thomason's down there manning it by himself because of the injuries.
Right.
That's when Styles goes, hey, that was my first duty. I can do that. And Kirk goes, go ahead and go down there. They show Styles go down there. He and Thomason are working and coolant leak. So they're both unconscious.
Well, before coolant leak,
Spock goes down there and goes
down there to check up on everything. How's everything? You need any help from me? And he's like,
I don't need nothing from you, Vulcan.
I don't need nothing from you, Vulcan, you dirty
You
dirty N-word.
Yeah, that Vulcan sounded like another word.
Don't say that. Get us back. Not even you.
I didn't say the word.
Not even you.
I didn't say the word.
And do that. You don't want this episode to be seen.
And then Spock just kind of looks at him and goes like, okay.
And Spock's just kind of like, whatever, man. And he leaves. Then coolant leak. And they're both unconscious on the floor. In the meantime, the Romulan has engaged. Kirk's taking them fully in. And he's Styles, fire.
That's where you hear the
Styles, can you hear me? Fire.
Styles,
fire.
The iconic Styles, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Fire. Right. What I always love about this scene when Spock gets back in the room.
He's got to go to 4 different consoles.
But again, good writing and good realism. There's 2 men down on the floor. And this cost Thomason his life.
Oh, yeah.
Spock fires the phasers first.
He fires first.
He does not rescue anybody.
No.
Doesn't drag anybody out of the room.
Leave those guys to die.
He fires.
Thomason is still in that room.
Yeah, he fires the phasers first. Having made sure that's done, Then he grabs Styles because Styles is closest, drags him out, and Thomason is not saved.
No.
Thomason dies. But that's awesome writing because that's what has to happen in that moment. The weapons have to be fired to save everybody's life.
Yeah.
And then we get catastrophic damage to the Romulan ship. The Romulan ship is crippled.
Hanging in space by a string.
And for the first time in the entire episode, you see the actual bird on the
beautiful view of it.
You get to actually see the Romulan bird of prey on the bottom of the ship. Kirk establishes contacts like, hey man, it's over. Again, no maniacal hatred. Nobody's a supervillain. Two professionals. Hey dude, you've lost.
Prepare to be boarded.
Prepare to be, we'll take on your survivors.
Yeah.
You're my prisoner. Well, let's do this. And Ramen Commander's like, that is not our way.
Funny is that great line. He said, in another reality, I could have called you friend.
Yes.
So they use this line in the movie.
And that's lifted directly from the
They use this line in the movie and they say, Klingons don't take prisoners. But it's actually Romulans. Do not take prisoners and will not be prisoners.
I don't know about that. I think the Romulans will take prisoners. They generally won't allow themselves to be prisoners.
How do you get to Ruro Pente then? If Klingons
that's a Klingon penal colony.
For Klingons. For people in the Klingon
there was
multiracial.
It was for people. It was for people in the Klingon Empire.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Well, the reality of what we're talking about is somebody in a given line and in a given writing a given moment in a given movie just decided it sounded cool to say Klingons don't take prisoners. Actually, if you look back at the old episodes, they conquer planets and they take tons of prisoners.
Yeah.
So that's just all that is. That doesn't stand up anywhere in any of the series because Klingon during the war in DS9, Klingons took hundreds of prisoners. So
the end portion where the two captains are talking, was good. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Like you say, there was no overt villain,
no crazy animosity.
Well, the other thing too, that it was two people talking to each other. It wasn't what you may have gotten was, let me ask you a question to the, Kirk could say to the Ramen command, let me ask you a question. Why would you violate the treaty now? Why would you do this?
Right.
Why would you put our great societies at risk? And it's because it's time to stop the oppression of the Federation. It was two guys who were doing their duty, and basically just said no hard feelings, shook his hand, and
blew himself
up
because that's their way.
It's their way.
One more nuke on the ship.
But once again, it's a very very smart way of writing it. A very adult way of looking at it. There, so many people are so personally grieved now. These guys didn't have no beef against one another. Your society says X, my society says Y.
And that brings us into conflict.
This is your way, this is our way, and that brings us into conflict.
All right, and that's borne out in reality and in the various wars and things, particularly in the naval tradition. You slugging it out with another vessel at sea. As soon as that vessel's down and there's men in the water in lifeboats,
you rescue
them. They move from being your enemy trying to kill you to fellow sailors that you will bring out of the water, and yes, they will be prisoners. But
remember, this was a societal control that was established out of the feudal system, and what do I mean by that is that if you look at like the Prussian military and the British and everything, you had these royals that were running around, and if you were the king, instead of having them, be stateside and figuring out a way to overthrow you made your military out of these royalty, and you made them officers. And so you had this officer and a gentleman, and they were counts and barons and the rest of that. And so there was chivalry and honor, and all the rest of that was built into that.
Protecting the aristocracy.
Exactly. But also, too, keeping them at arm's length. It's the Romans did that. If you were from, if you were a legion from Italy, you weren't stationed in Italy. They put you in England because you were less likely to revolt because your food was coming from, a certain place, and you weren't a half day from home. You were months and months away. So it's this sort of control. So in that sense, both the commander and Kirk were sort of like placed to be there, and their actions reflect that plan, and that you have honor and duty, and those are the people that you trust with your big weapons. What was a movie? It was a War Games, where they start off and you don't know if it's a simulation or not. So there's two officers down in the missile silo. Yeah. And he's like, "Turn your key, sir." And he's like, all these people are going to die. And he's like, "Turn your key." And he pulls out this gun. And
Pull out a sidearm.
And it's implied that he shot him because if you weren't going to do your duty, you were going to be taken down. Well, the person that was doubting what they needed to do is definitely not somebody that you would consider to be from the aristocracy, because that's always the thing, right? It's the great British officers getting attacked by the Zulus, and they're just standing there, and it's like, "Well, good day to you, Montgomery." "Yes, a terrible day, isn't it? We're all going to die, but for the Queen and country, we're here."
Yeah.
So you have the conclusion of the two captains,
right?
And one takes his duty all the way to the grave. Because it is the Romulan way.
Romulan way. Not to be taken.
And after that, you have McCoy gives a report of the lives lost and the injured. And we know that from the beginning of the show, or the episode, that the two young people that were to be married, the young man did not make it.
Thomason. Mm-hmm. And we glazed over the scene where they show them in phaser control, and they're discussing their interruption to their nuptials, and she tells him, "You haven't gotten away from me yet." But
he found a way.
There's only one way. It puts a human face on it. They give you these two characters right at the beginning of the episode. You never seen them before. You don't see them again. But it gives you that impact when Thomason loses his life in this battle.
But you don't think of it at that time until it's brought up at the end that he's the one that lost his life. And then Kirk goes because McCoy goes, "She's down at the chapel now." Mm-hmm. And Kirk goes down as a captain of the ship to see her. And to...
Oh, you didn't realize it was the same guy when Thomason?
Oh, no, I knew it was the same guy, but most people don't.
I think they do. I think they were, because they showed him enough through the episode to kind of keep you in line with who he was.
So Kirk goes down to the chapel to see her, and he goes, "These things happen."
And it doesn't always make sense. And she has this great line, and she says, "I'll be all right." Mm-hmm. And she walks away.
I'll find somebody else.
Well, no. She's an officer.
She's going to carry on.
She's going to carry on.
It was about her duty at that point. That's reinforced. And then there's a great, reverse dolly shot of following Kirk walking through the halls of his ship. And you think about, man, I had a rough Monday.
Yeah.
Everything all those decisions he had to make. And that was one of the things he said back in the cabin. It was one of those rare moments where, you see Kirk say, "What if I'm wrong?" Everybody's looking to me.
Yeah.
And you could just see as he was walking down that hallway, it wasn't that he was cocky that I made the right decisions. I think he was walking down there.
He survived.
He's saying, "I didn't screw up." He wasn't celebrating a victory. He was respectful of not having made a mistake.
We escaped by the hair of our chin.
Pleased to be in that hallway with all these live people around him.
And the people were a backdrop to what Daystrom said earlier, is that there were two characters in that final scene. One was Kirk and the other was the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And the Enterprise was around Kirk as he was walking through there. And I think he was also, where he's talking about Sir William and his ability to sort of project in that role. There was a reverence in the way that he was walking towards towards the ship. I felt a connection between him and the ship.
I wouldn't have survived without my ship. My ship beat his ship. That's the only reason I'm still here.
That's it.
I love my baby.
Yeah, that's true.
My warp capacity. My shielding ability.
Throw it in reverse. Throw it in reverse.
Balance of Terror is a fantastic episode.
It is.
It is a movie unto itself.
Yeah.
What it could have been done as a movie. But it was a movie. It was a movie.
The Enemy Below.
Enemy Below.
I mean, it's some of the lines from the episode are lifted directly from that movie. Even though like the line of "we could have been friends under different circumstances," you got to see that movie. I mean, it's crazy. It's especially if you've seen Balance of Terror recently. It's crazy with like when you watch it, because there's a Thomason character on the destroyer, on the American destroyer. There's this young kid, and he's not a prominent character, but he's in there just enough. He's in the background. He's a good kid. He's doing his job under these bad circumstances, and he's stepping up. And when something bad happens to him, you're like, oh man, because he doesn't have the "I'm getting married." That's how they worked it in the Star Trek episode.
Mm-hmm.
But you got this young kid when all hell, it's his first battle, all hell's breaking loose. He's stepping up, and at a critical moment, he does what he needs to do, and it cost him. And it's the same thing. It's like, oh man.
Well, that's like the Wrath of Khan when
Scotty's nephew.
Scotty comes to the bridge, and he's got the young boy in his arms.
That young boy is Scotty's nephew.
I know they say that, but he said he stayed at his post.
When the other cadets ran?
He stayed at his post. Duty.
Well, I think also, too, with Khan, wasn't that supposedly his son? Was it Joaquin or what was the name of his?
That was Khan's son.
Yeah, and when he dies, he looks up at him and says, Joachim, and he says, yours is the superior.
Yeah.
You know, like in both Khan's loss and Scotty's loss were supposed to be equal, but they were coming from two different perspectives.
But Khan's point was out of vengeance, and the Romulan commander, there was no emotional attachment.
No, he would have rather not been there.
It's purely my responsibility because I'm the captain of.
It's my duty. It's back to duty.
The flagship of
I've got the newest ship.
Star Empire.
Yeah. I've got the newest ship, and they've sent me out to test it. They've sent me out to test the resolve of the enemy.
Came to mind when I was watching it, The Hunt for Red October.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Because that's what the episode comes from. It's a submarine movie. It's a submarine episode.
But even then, and I don't know whether that is who writes all those.
Tom Clancy.
I don't know if it was in the book or not. I read the book. I can't remember if it was in there. I think it was. Supposedly that captain was motivated by the death of his wife.
Yes.
But there was no such motivation in the Romulan.
He was just doing his job.
It was to him. It was Tuesday.
Yeah, but the difference in Hunt for Red October, the Russian captain is trying to defect. The Romulan captain is not trying to defect.
Right.
It's a matter of duty.
Right. He's been sent to test the enemy's resolve and their defenses, and he's done that.
He didn't like what this weapon or what this ship would mean, but he wasn't a defector like the Hunt for Red October. Now he had an ultimate ship or a better ship.
Yeah, it was the Typhoon class submarine.
But it just came to that thought just popped in my head while I was watching it.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say it's a top 5 episode.
Number one for me.
I'd say top 3. Top 3 for sure.
Click like and subscribe.
Yeah. Balance of Terror Redux. Do it.
You got to get better on the board. When I want the buttons pushed,
I'm not thinking about your board. You better get an instant in here to take care of this board.
Switch that board around and give it to me, and I'll be.
Yeah, fine. Great. Go ahead, Captain. Take it over. Take the board on your ship.
You are great. I am great.
One of us is great. That's it for another episode of Men on Track.